Hello everyone, I hope you're having a fantastic day. I'm recording this early in the morning, and so you'll probably hear bubbles in the background, so if you hear them, sorry about that. But today I'm going to be doing an Easter card using the stamp set from Lawn Fawn. It's called Chirpy Chirp Chirp. It's so cute. It's an older stamp set, but I had just picked it up for this year, and I thought it was adorable, so we're going to make a card using it. It has these cute little chickies on it, and we're going to stamp all three of them using Memento Tuxedo Black ink. I'm just stamping them on a piece of Neenah Classic Crest Solar White 80-pound cardstock. I'm going to be coloring in these little guys with my Copic markers, and I did leave the coloring in for you, but I'll play some music for you while I color it in. Once I have my little chickies stamped, there's a little speech bubble. I'm going to stamp that. That middle chickie, I actually had a piece of lint, and so there's a little black line around his nose, so I re-stamped him. But here's the little speech bubble, or a thought bubble. I'm going to stamp 3 of those. And then I'm going to also stamp a little music note. There's a 2-bar, and then there's a 1-bar. I'm going to stamp the little 1-bar twice. So my little chickies are going to be singing. Now I'm going to zoom in, color these guys in, and I'll leave the colors for you up in the left-hand corner, and I will catch you back as soon as I'm done coloring. Okay, I just about finished up with my coloring, and you can see that I stamped the little bunny ears that was in the stamp set. That kind of looks like a little hat. I'm just going to color them in and die cut everything out. Once I have everything cut out, we're going to set those aside, and we're going to work on our sentiment. I think those little chickies are so cute. Now I grabbed the sentiment that says Chirpity Chirp Chirp. And along with that sentiment, there is some sentiments that can go with it. It says translation, and then there's Happy Easter, it's your day. And so I thought it would be cute to stamp Chirpity Chirp Chirp on the outside of this black cardstock, and then have it side folding, so when you open it up, it'll say translation, Happy Easter. I'm going to stamp with my Versamark ink, so I use my anti-static powder tool. I'm going to ink up my Chirpity Chirp Chirp and stamp that towards the top. I'm just making sure I can get it straight. Okay, and then I am going to add some Nouveau Glacier White embossing powder to the very top. And then I'm just going to tap it and kind of remove all those leftover particles around my sentiment there. Using my heat gun, I'm just going to melt it. And I think that looks nice. Now I'm going to take my paper trimmer and just trim this down. So this way my little sentiment will open up, and I thought that would be fun. I'm going to trim down the end. I was going to use my scissors, but usually when I trim down a strip of paper, it's so funny. I always get it crooked, so paper trimmers help for me, at least with those thin strips. Okay, now we're going to open it up and stamp the inside of our sentiment. So I chose translation, Happy Easter. The nice thing about these two is they can butt up right next to each other. The sentiments are blocked, which is great. Okay, we're going to do the same thing. We're going to stamp it with Versamark ink, add some white embossing powder, and then we're going to go ahead and melt that. I just thought this would be a little bit different, a little fun. So there we have it. Now I decided to use my crocodile and punch a hole on the right side of the sentiment. We're going to keep this closed by adding some baker's twine. So to give it a more finished look, I'm going to grab some large white eyelets, and then we're just going to secure them to that little tab there. I had to adjust my crocodile. I had it on the smaller eyelet setting. And then we're going to add an eyelet to the very top sentiment, and then when you open it up, we're going to add another one to the inside. And there we go. Okay, now I have a panel here. I cut out with a stitched rectangle die, and then I took one of my oval dies, and I'm going to cut out an oval in that panel there, but I didn't want to cut out the bottom piece. So what I'm going to do is take my die cutting plates. I'm going to do a partial die cutting. So I'm placing it, the top plate where I want to be cut, and then I'm going to run it through my die cut machine, and this way the bottom portion is not cut out. Now I'm going to cut a straight line using my T-square ruler and my craft knife. And this part actually made me pretty nervous, cutting on my glass mat. I was afraid it was going to scratch it, so I didn't add too much pressure. But so I'm going to do it one more time, adding a little bit more pressure, making sure I can cut that piece out. This glass mat didn't leave one scratch. I was so impressed by it. I decided to trim it down just a little bit more, and this time I added a lot of pressure with my craft knife, and the glass mat worked fantastic. I mean, it cut like butter that second time when I added a lot of pressure. So I really like that. Okay, my sentiment's going to go there. Now I had grabbed a piece of vellum. Now I trimmed this down to 4 inches by 5 1/4. So it's going to leave me a little white edge on the edge of my card base. Or it's not actually going to be a pink edge. I'm going to use a pink card base. But I am going to take some Distress Oxide ink. This is actually broken china. And I'm going to shade in the background of my little egg-shaped oval. The tool that I'm using is actually a stencil brush. And if you're interested, I'll leave a link below to where you can check this out. They're pretty inexpensive, and for me they work great. They shed a little bit, but they work great. What I'm excited about is Tim Holtz's came out with a retractable stencil brush, and I'm looking forward to trying one of those out. Okay, I'm just adding a little bit more color, making sure it's kind of nice and even behind my little window. And then you can see I grabbed the little grass stamp image here. We're gonna stamp some grass. I'm going to take a pencil and mark that bottom area of my little window. That way I know where to stamp my grass. I'm going to ink it up with some Cucumber Crush ink from Stampin' Up. And I got ready to stamp, and I thought, well, it's going to, my grass is going to be outside my window. So I thought I'd better use some Post-it tapes to block it off. I'm just going to scoot them out a little bit more. Okay, now we're ready to stamp. We're going to ink it up one more time and stamp right on top of that vellum piece. Give me a nice little green grass area there. Now that's going to take a little bit of time to dry, so we're going to set that aside. And then we're going to take our little window frame, and we're going to do a little bit of stamping with that. I wanted the stitching around my frame to stay white. So I'm just covering up to the stitch lines with Post-it notes on the sides and on the very bottom. I'm going to ink up my grass again, and then we're going to stamp that right on the bottom of that panel. Okay, we're just going to remove our little Post-it notes. And our sentiment's going to go there. Now we're going to flip this panel over. I'm going to add some foam tape behind it. we're going to pop that up and place that right in the center of our vellum panel there. Okay, now I decided to grab a piece of pink cardstock. I'm going to trim it down a little bit, so it's going to leave me a little bit of a pink edge right behind my sentiment. I popped my sentiment up with some foam tape, and then I'm going to stick it right in the center of that pink cardstock, and then I'm using my tape runner. I just adhered that to my panel. Okay, now we're going to add all of our little chickies. They're so cute. For that one last little thought bubble, I grabbed a stamp set from Lawn Fawn. It's called the Push Here stamp set. It's an interactive stamp set. So I thought I wanted my recipient to know that they can open up the Chirpity Chirp Chirp, so I added that. It fit perfect inside the little speech bubble. It says open me. So I stamped that, die cut it, added all of my elements, kind of arranged a little scene, and then now we're going to thread some pink and white baker's twine through our little sentiment tab. Now I decided to add a little bit of foam tape underneath my eyelet and then also underneath the pink cardstock, just to give it a little bit more stability. We're going to thread that baker's twine through the top eyelet, and then we're just going to tie a little bow. Now I wanted to leave the tails on this bow a little bit long, that way it could be opened and you could retie the bow. So I'm just going to trim them down a little bit. Okay, now I added some foam tape behind the vellum, just in the areas where you can see the cardstock. And then I'm going to place that on an A2 size card base. This is a pink top folding card base, 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 inches. And that's my card for today. You open it up and it says translation, Happy Easter. I thought that'd be fun and something a little bit different. Let me know what you think if you by leaving me a comment or hitting that thumbs up. If you're new, guys, and want to see more, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. I wish you a fantastic day. I hope your weekend's going great, and we will see you again real soon. Bye-bye.